Alrighty. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're doing another video, getting 2 for 1 today. Excuse me. I did an earlier video on Johnny Somali, the nuisance streamer, so be sure to like and subscribe and check out that video. Excuse me. With that being said, retired in Korea, can I, as a military retiree who is living here in Korea or visiting Korea, can I go on post to get gas for my Korean friend's car? In other words, this is an interesting situation because on the outside, this might seem like insignificant. It might seem harmless. Because in the United States, if I borrow a friend's car and I go on post, maybe as a favor to the friend or as an exchange of saying, hey, thanks for letting me use your truck. I'll top it off with gas on post or, any gas station in the United States. All those gas prices are the same and it's no big deal. It's very different when we're talking about being in Korea because on post, gas is infinitely cheaper than it is off post. So you're going to pay about double in the price of gas when you get your gas off post. They buy by the liter and it's taxed and it's expensive. So me being able to go on post because I'm an authorized military retiree, I'm one of those authorized people, kind of like military service members, their family, contractors, people that are authorized, even some Koreans, but they have to generally be working on post or have a contract or special permission to be able to buy gas on post. So with that being said, it doesn't really make sense. But we're going to take a look at this because somebody has asked this question, and I think it's a very important question, especially for those of us who are retired and don't want to get in trouble. So let's go ahead and we'll jump right in. And we'll take a look at this. Let me do one little last check here and get ready. Boom, here we go. Okay, this is an anonymous post, and this was on the Camp Humphrey support page, which is a group that I belong to because we frequent Camp Humphreys a lot, being a military retiree. See a lot of expats, kind of like myself and my wife. My wife has Korean ancestry. And we retired here in Korea with the F4 and the F1 visa. And we help other veterans out through our experiences and sharing what we've learned in this process of selling everything in the United States and moving to Korea. So being a retiree, this jumped out at me. It says, I have a question about getting gas on base. I'm a retiree. Congratulations. Don't you love it when Uncle Sam pays you every single month? What an opportunity. If I escort my friend in his car onto the base, and I'm assuming this is a Korean national, can I use the gas station to fill up his car? I've heard it might be against the rules, and I just want to confirm whether that's true or not. I also found out that I can't bring my car on base. I just want to understand why a DOD ID holder is not allowed to bring a car. Thank you. Okay, first of all, there's a lot of interesting information here. One of the things being that as a retiree, you are authorized to register, if you buy a car, is to register it on post. As a military retiree, you're under one of those categories, under DBIDs and vehicle registration, as one of the people that can come in and register one vehicle. And that's what we ended up doing. We had to get like a safety check, had to get our registration and all that, and eventually we go on post and we were able to register our car. We get the sticker, so that way we can freely drive on and on base and take care of the things that we need to on post. And it's a great way. It really appreciate the privileges that the military base in USFK has afforded retirees. So with that being said, you can do the same. Just contact the vehicle registration office at Mod Hall. Contact them about the specific paperwork and the things that you need to do to register your vehicle. With that being said, we're going to move on to the next point, which we'll take a look at. Let me see if I can find where is it? Boom, here it is. Anyway, it talks about, I've heard it might be against the rules to buy car gas for a friend's car. Now, I'm going to assume this is a Korean national, or it might even be an American citizen national who doesn't fall under the category of purchasing gas on a military base. So again, this is what we're going to, and this person wants to find out whether this is true. So this is very good that they're asking questions. It's best to ask questions and to find out the information, because what you don't want to do is get in trouble and have your privileges taken away, and that would put a kink in your retirement here in Korea. So he goes on to say, I just want to understand why a DoD ID card holder is not allowed to bring a car. Well, you are allowed to bring a car, but more concerned about, since we've already addressed that, is buying gas for your friends. So whether it's an American citizen who does not have access to the military base or isn't given special permission to buy gas, or if even worse, if it's a Korean national, a Korean citizen, you're not allowed to buy gas. And we're going to go over some of these comments. So, we've got some other things here. From my experience, I filled up everyone's car that I escorted with no issue. Just don't go around telling everyone. Keep it to yourself. That apparently some people don't know the regulations, and me being the person that I am, I wouldn't rat anybody else out, but I have seen people get in trouble in Korea for doing this, for exactly doing this. When I was in active duty here in Korea, I actually saw service members buying gas for their friends multiple times, and those people that guy ended up getting an Article 15 and a reduction in rank. So the reply is, thank you so much. And it says, remember, yes, keep it to yourself, and surely don't go around posting it. Thank God for anonymity, because you just kind of said that, you do that all the time, and we're going to find out why that's not really a good idea. All cars have to be registered for gas once you're on post. You can use the gas pumps as there is no ID requirement. And this, we're going to get into some interesting information. Thanks. Can I register my car as a retiree? We talked about this. You're allowed to register one vehicle. So Brian here absolutely knows what's going on. The statement above is not exactly true, because Koreans cannot use the gas pumps on post. Again, periodically, the gas stations will send attendants out to check IDs while people are pumping gas. And then it talks about how to register your car. Brian gives some real good information. Anonymous member, that question is the same I had. A DoD ID card holder can't bring my friends to the commissary to shop and make purchases. Yeah, that's you're not supposed to do that, because that is a ration control issue which comes into play, which is only for authorized people. So military members, their service, their family members, contractors, people who are authorized to get ration control privileges, which gasoline is one of those things. And recently on Camp Humphreys at the commissary, they now have an ID card check. So to even get in the door of the commissary, you have to have an authorized ID to get in there. People that don't, matter of fact, the other day we just went to the commissary and I saw a group of 5 people. 4 of them could not get in because they were not authorized. So they had to leave the commissary, and eventually, as I look back, they all left. So apparently they wanted somebody to do shopping for them in the commissary. They were dissuaded by the ID card, thing there, and they all left. So anyway, Brian ends up saying, I spent 7 years on Humphreys and never seen anyone have their ID checked at the pumps. If they do, they should do it more. Policy for getting gas on post in Germany was enforced for everyone and even had monthly limits based on engine size. That's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Anonymous member, no. They actually do it. I've been here for 13 years and they do it randomly. I can say that I have had a check as well. I've got a total of 15 years, with the last 2.5 years being here as a retiree, and I've seen it happen more often when I was active duty, but I have seen it as a retiree. Granted, it's rare. So anyway, I go on to my little spiel here and say, as a retiree here in Korea, you might want to check USFK Regulation 60-1. From what I read, purchasing gas is for authorized personnel, so in other words, status of forces agreements, retirees, contractors, military people, their family members, and special circumstances where they are specifically authorized. In other words, there's written authorization where they can get gas on post. Yeah, I've talked about how I've seen people get in buying gas for unauthorized people, get in trouble. It's rare, but it happens. My wife and I, that neither of us, what we would end up doing is we wouldn't buy gas for family or friends in that situation. Why? Because during my time in the military, we were told that is not authorized to do, and it's against the ration control policies. And again, there is no written authorization for getting your friends, whether they're American citizens or Korean citizens, if they're not authorized under ration control to have access to that low-price gas. You don't want to put your neck on the line for that. It really doesn't make sense. And another thing I brought out in my comment was that my wife's family had people that worked on post, and they were told, yeah, you don't do this because it's against regulations. Now, some people might say, well, they don't check your ID card, so it's no big deal. Just because they don't check your ID cards does not mean that it's not a big deal, nor does that absolve anybody from punishment of doing such things. So just like in the commissary before, for the last about 2.5 years, they didn't require an ID card check for everybody to come into the commissary. But with that being said, because of the high instances of race tracking and buying food for Korean citizens that, selling people buying items in the commissary and then selling them on the black market here in Korea, which is not authorized, or even for friends and family, it's not something that you're supposed to do. So just because they didn't check IDs before doesn't mean that it's not a law or a reg that, don't worry about it. There's no one's checking, so just go ahead and do it. Ignorance is not bliss, and the regs are in black and white. So whether somebody checks IDs or not, it doesn't really matter. The interesting thing, we're going to go up, and again, my Korean family members and friends would not do this because they know that that's against the rules. So it's just kind of problematic that this is kind of a question that comes up. But again, some people might not know, and as a fellow retiree, I definitely want to give them the right information. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a look at some other information. And here it is. We're going to look up this regulation of USFK 60-1, which is access to duty-free goods, which is what gasoline falls under, along with, items in the PX, the commissary, Class 6, in other words, buying alcohol. It even covers food items that you can buy at the food court. So we're going to scroll through this, and let me see if I can, I think that's a good, I think we're good there. And if we go down here, I highlighted some areas on specifically what we're going to be talking about here. And it goes through about references for, I went too far. So in other words, the responsibility explanation of terms. It's going to talk about duty-free goods, and then who has access to that or authorization for these things, which include liquor, beer, commissary purchases, and gasolina. Shelf life and purchase limit profit policies, exception to policy to increase purchase limits, which is not what we're going to talk about. And then the access control, who is authorized to be able to do this and who is unauthorized personnel. So yeah, we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to scroll through, and the first thing we want to end up saying is this sets a policy to prevent abuse of duty-free privileges afforded to authorized patrons under the SOFA agreement, which is the status of forces agreement. Under the status of forces, there are special benefits such as lower prices for gas, commissary items, PX items, electronics, all of those things, which are generally higher priced than what they are. They're higher priced off post than they are on post. So within this SOFA agreement, you're not allowed to transfer those things over to Korean citizens, even if they're your friends. If they don't have that authorization, you technically cannot transfer those things over as a military retiree, military service member, family member, or contractor over to Korean citizens that don't have that authorization. So in other words, you would be in violation of 600-1. So sets procedures for access to duty-free goods in Korea and U.S. FK and status of forces agreement. So as we go down here, and I did have there it is. I wish I had the page numbers written down. I wish I did, but duty-free purchases. Military service members violating this regulation are subject to punishment under Uniform Code of Military Justice. And like I said, Section 7, Article 92, failure to obey a lawful general order or regulation. And back in the day, I actually ended up seeing a military service member who bought gas for his friends multiple times end up getting an Article 15, reduction in rank, and some other things. It didn't go well. This is when I was up north, back when I was active duty. And so, yeah, there was a huge thing going on. So to say that it rarely happens, doesn't matter if it rarely happens, because it's very problematic when you're the one that gets caught and the regulation ends up saying, yeah, you're not supposed to do this. So let's get back to the reg. Civilian personnel violating this regulation are subject to adverse administrative action or criminal prosecution as authorized by applicable ROC law, Republic of Korea. So in other words, Korea can punish you as a retiree for transferring unauthorized duty-free goods and services to Korean nationals or people that are not authorized. So yeah, U.S. code sections or federal or local regulations. So there's a lot of things that you could get dinged with here. Black marketing USFK duty-free goods, including gasoline that we saw, has been problematic for USFK resulting in placement of limits and controls on selected duty-free goods, most subject to abuse. And here it talks about the liquor policy. Remember back in the day, you could only buy X amounts of liquor, and then everybody would buy the max. And, beer policy, there's that as well. Now, you don't really see this these days. They used to actually issue ration cards where they would punch or mark off, how many units of alcohol that you purchased within a month, and it would renew monthly. But with this, you also had commissary dollar limits to try to combat against the race tracking or the black marketing of these goods. And I remember back in the day, we would see a lot of these things, and you could go off posts and you could go into marketplaces and you would see stalls filled with American goods that were bought at the commissary, or you could go to certain houses that were well known within the Ville to buy these American products from the commissary and the PX, where other Koreans would sell them to other Koreans. Of course, there would be a markup, but it would be less than what the Koreans would pay if they bought those with the import taxes and VAT and so on and so forth. Gasoline purchase policy. Here's the one that we're looking at. Now, this is probably the most I've dug into a regulation since I've retired. So please like and subscribe. I would appreciate that because I haven't looked at regs for quite a while. Usually I just go off the top of my head, and normally I say, not my monkey, not my circus. I'm retired. I don't get paid to do this. But as this falls in the realm of being a military retiree responding to another retiree, I don't want that other retiree to get in trouble. So that's the whole purpose of this video, and some other people might find this informational. So let's go back here. It talks about the gasoline policy. Authorization to purchase gasoline will not be included in contracts, memoranda of agreement, understanding without USFK approval or FCAC, whatever approval. Authorized patrons may purchase gasolines for vehicles registered on a USFK military post or base, displaying a post-base decal by presenting their DOD or USFK ID or ration control card. Doesn't mean that if they don't check, you're free to go ahead and purchase gasoline for your friend's car. It doesn't mean that at all. They're still within the authorized patrons are only those that can do that. Authorized patrons with rented or leased vehicles must present a copy of the rental or lease agreement in lieu of the vehicle's registration document along with the ID RCC. Names on these documents must match. So when we're looking at this, what we end up seeing is that just based off of that alone, and of course, service members, families who are stationed here, contractors, retirees were at the bottom of the list. And what we read in this 60-1 for the gasoline purchase policy, even if you rent a vehicle, your name has to be on the registration. If you have a vehicle and it has to be your name on the registration, technically, according to the regulations, and if you break the regulation, you could be punished. If you're active duty, you can get punished with UCMJ. If you're a civilian or a contractor or a retiree, you could be punished as well, which could be a bad thing. Yeah, you could lose your privileges on post. So would you want to buy gas for your friend that's not authorized with a vehicle that's not registered in your name? Why take the risk? Yeah, it just doesn't sit right with me. Purchase of carryout fuel is limited to no more than 5 gallons per day. This goes back to the days where you could buy kerosene on post, and kerosene you had kerosene heaters off post, and service members and their families could purchase kerosene. I remember that was way back in the day. My first time in Korea was in 1988, prior to the Olympics, and you could buy kerosene. Because if you're authorized to live off post, you had the authorization to get kerosene to heat your place with a kerosene heater. Yeah, I'm old. With that, gas ration control card only applies to Korean national and law enforcement. Here's the other important thing. Law enforcement, military intelligence, personnel working as part of a joint U.S.-ROC investigative team, where the use of U.S. government-owned vehicle would hamper undercover operations, may be authorized access to gas ration control. The duties of Korean employees are not those described above. The Korean employees are not authorized to purchase duty-free fuel. Now, remember we were talking about that, how I said my wife had family members, and indeed my wife, she actually worked on post for a while. They were not authorized because Korean employees on post are not authorized to purchase gas on post. That is one of the things in the SOFA agreement. It is what it is, the agreement that Korea made with the U.S. Forces Korea. You can't do it. And I've actually heard of people who got in trouble, Korean nationals who ended up buying gas on post, who did so, who got in trouble, and their employment was terminated. So, yeah, they lost their job over a tank of gas. Yeah, it didn't really make sense. So we continue on. So if a Korean employee that is authorized to work on post is not authorized gas, and you think your friend's car is, don't do it. Application for gas ration control can be made by memorandum, and of course it talks about that. The request must be made by the unit commander or civilian equivalents. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but considering that I have never seen that, and who would go through and do this to actually fill up a tank for their friend's car while escorting them on post, I just don't see that as happening. Let's see. Garrison and wing commanders may establish heating fuel kerosene limits. Remember, I was talking about the kerosene stoves and heating. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Heating fuel limits must be in writing, and a copy of the limits provided to, so on and so forth. A lot of interesting information comes down here. Authorized personnel, access control. In other words, who has access to the gas pump? So let's take a look at this. It ends up access to duty-free goods controlled by SOFA and U.S. laws, regulations, and policies in Koreans. Patrons allowed to purchase duty-free goods at commissary exchange must be authorized in accordance with the commissary and exchange regulations as well as SOFA. So it talks about that to make reasonable and practical efforts to restrict unauthorized access and blah, blah, blah. In other words, we don't want to abuse the system of SOFA granted tax and custom-free privileges as retirees. we got to safeguard that because that could bring unwanted heat on retirees as a whole, and that's not something that we want to do. So yeah, you go through, and I don't know if there's any other information that I highlighted on here. Oh, yep, I did. Transfer of duty-free goods, because this is kind of drive home the point even more. Personnel subject to USAMJ who violate Chapter 7 will be punished under Article 92. Personnel that are not USAMJ who fail to comply are subject to adverse administrative action and criminal prosecution as by ROC law. What we ended up seeing, personnel subject to this regulation will not transfer duty-free or tax-free goods to another person in Korea except as authorized by the regulation. And guess what? Your Korean friend or even an American friend who is not authorized, the vehicle's registered in their name, and they're not registered on post, they're not covered under the SOFA agreement, yeah, don't do it. It just don't do it. It's not worth poking the bear, doing something stupid for, you save $20, $30 in gas and you lose your privileges on post. That does not make any sense. Transfers between individuals or organizations can be done using a certain form. Again, that you can put in and you can request it, but the chances of them saying, yeah, sure, go and fill up your friend's tank who you escorted on post, I would bet a paycheck that the request would be denied and they would point to the regulation saying, no, they're not unauthorized personnel. Transfers, talking about transfer who has duty-free goods and privileges and an individual organization not having duty-free import privileges are complicated. The ROC collector of customs may be required to approve such transactions. So again, we're getting into something that is way far beyond, the person that just wants to be a friend and fill up their friend's tank as they escort them on post in their car is not something that you're going to do. Failure to present within a reasonable time and all this, it could just lead to more trouble. Revocation of privileges. Yeah, if you do provide access and transfer duty-free goods to somebody else, that is indeed a privilege, and you could lose your privileges if you do that. So if abused, it may be revoked or suspended. Only the garrison or wing commander or designated rep may revoke or suspend the duty-free privileges. Revoke can be for any duration, including indefinitely. You read that? Indefinitely. Exception. Garrison wing commanders will provide a courtesy notification to the embassy before revoking an embassy employee's access to duty-free goods. So if an embassy employee, they get a little bit of more information, but as a retiree, both you and I, unauthorized transfer is going to be a revoke of privileges, which could mean a number of things. Mandatory revocation. Access privileges must be revoked in cases that are directly connected to black marketing or wrongfully transfer of duty-free goods. Buying gas for somebody that's not authorized to get gas is wrongful transfer of duty-free goods, according to this regulation. If total revocation creates undue hardships, commanders may limit privileges upon proper petition by the offending party. Proper petition requires more than a statement that the revocation action has created undue hardship. So in other words, if it ends up that you or somebody else buys gas or illegally transfers duty-free goods over to a friend that is not authorized, you can put in to have your privileges reinstated and say, oh, well, I'm a retiree and it's hard for me, because the price of gas is so expensive off post. That's why I need to have my privileges reestablished or reinstituted on post. The garrison wing commander, whatever general, does not have to because you made your bed and you're going to lie in it. So yeah, undue hardship, it doesn't fall within that because for the undue hardship, you'd have to say something like, well, I can't buy gas off post at all. I can only buy gas on post, and that would be undue hardship. That might be a case. But since that is not the case, I don't see that suspension being lifted. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff when you look into the regulations. Garrison Wing Commanders, if duty-free privilege has been revoked or suspended by a garrison or wing commander, then the revocation or suspension is applicable to all areas on the Korean Peninsula. Do you get that? That. I think that's important to highlight. So we're going to bring this up here. Yeah, look at that. Duty free has been revoked or suspended by garrison. The revocation or suspension is applicable to all areas of the Korean Peninsula. The days, and the reason that's there is because obviously there ended up somebody would break the law at one post or camp and they would just go to another post or camp. Maybe they would do black marketing, buying gas or whatever it is, getting items out of different PXs around the peninsula. Well, they found that out, and because Joes were stupid, they ended up taking this regulation and encompassing the entire peninsula. So if you get dinged at one place, you can't purchase it at any place. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And after spending all these years in Korea, a lot of stuff can go wrong when we're talking about purchasing gas on post for your Korean friend's car, or somebody who is not authorized, or a vehicle that is not registered in your name ends up being an illegal transfer of those duty-free goods. Man, that's a lot to go through. Regs, I haven't gone through regs in a long time. That will definitely tire you out. That just, but being a retiree, I think it's important that we highlight this information because some people just don't know. There's a lot of things, just like there's a lot of things that I didn't know. But I knew that I was going to retire in Korea. I knew I was going to have base access to the military base because I'm retired military, and I wanted to find out, what can I do? What can I do? So I did pretty much an exhaustive search, went over the regulations on the things that I could do, things that I couldn't do, things that would get me in trouble. Then it's like, okay, well, let me stay away from those things. And because I want to be here for the long haul, I enjoy being retired here in Korea. I love it. The low crime, the minimal expenses that we pay to live here, which is half of what we were paying in the United States. And I don't want to ruin that because I did something stupid. And I don't want to see other retirees do something stupid and have those privileges and have that opportunity to be retired in Korea. I don't want them to lose any of their privileges. Could you imagine, think of this for a second, could you imagine if you ended up losing your privileges throughout the entire peninsula? How would that make you feel? And would that be a burden on you? Absolutely would. Let's get to a couple of comments. It says, my ID was checked at Camp Humphreys several times as a retiree. Yeah, the last 2.5 years, actually, I had my ID checked once, which was rare. We get gas like every other month or whatever, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. The other CBGB says, do you ever use money transfers like Wise in South Korea? No, actually I don't, because I have a military, I have access to the military base, and I have a bank account at Navy Federal Credit Union. We just go and we withdraw the amount we want. We go to a money exchange store, and then we deposit that amount into the Korean bank, which is totally legit. It's totally legal. You can do that. The reason we go to money exchange stores is because of the fact that we get better exchange rates than the exchange rates that you'll get on the military banks on post, and better exchange rate than you would get on the Korean banks. So yeah, but with that, Wise is a real good app to use. The rates and the fees that you're going to pay to transfer money from a U.S. bank account to even a Korean bank account. There's a number of people that have talked to me, said how they have used Wise to wire money from their American bank accounts to their friends here in Korea. Great. It's cheaper than doing a bank-to-bank international wire transfer. They saved a lot of money on fees. So I would say, from what I've seen so far, I haven't done an exhaustive search, but Y seems to have the best rates so far that I've seen. So we'll leave that a little bit of a disclaimer. Navy Federal is good. Yes, the Navy Federal Credit Union is great. And kind of going off on a little rabbit trail here, they have on post the U.S. Military Bank, Bank of America, U.S. Military Bank, and then you have Navy Federal Credit Union. Now, I've had accounts with both, and it should be noted that the Bank of America Military Bank is not a 100% full-service bank. It is kind of like light beer. It's got a lot of things going for it, but it's missing some stuff. And it is not essentially a full-service bank. There are some things that are missing. And if you just look at the services between a Military Bank of America and the Navy Federal Credit Union, when you start looking at interest rates that you can get on savings or CDs or money markets and things like that, you get definitely better rates with the Navy Federal Credit Union than you do with the Military Bank. It's interesting. If you start really digging into that, you will find that Military Bank is not a full-service bank. It's kind of like banking light, and it's only authorized for military. In other words, it's the lowest bidder that got the contract that meets the minimum standards. I don't want the minimum standards. I want higher standards, and Navy Federal Credit Union has a lot of higher standards and higher interest rates for my invested money. So, yeah, we'll definitely go for that. So, very interesting when we're talking about this whole thing about being retired in Korea with the gentleman that was asking, can I buy gas for my Korean friend? And there it is. Another retiree, anonymous member. As a retiree to retiree, don't do it. It might seem innocuous. It might seem like it's no big deal because I just want to do them a favor. I drive them on post, escort them on post. You can escort, I think, up to 4 people per ID card holder. And you go to the food court. And actually, that regulation, USFK 60-1, actually has information on the food courts and whether you can take food from there, eat food, bring family members or Korean citizens. Yes, they can eat food in the food court and so on and so forth. You see it, but it's an authorized activity. Gas, not so much. So again, glad you asked that question, whoever you are, anonymous member. But you definitely want to check with the regs. Percentage-wise, when is the last time that you heard of somebody getting in trouble for buying gas for somebody that they escorted on post in their car that was registered to their friend? I can't think of one, but because it's still a regulation, I don't want to be that guy. And I definitely don't want to be that guy that loses my privileges to buy gas on post or any other. Could you imagine? Let's say you got dinged, you got caught. It's 1 in 10 million. It'd be like winning the lottery 10 times. But you get caught buying gas for an unauthorized vehicle. By the way, they have cameras there, so yeah, that's kind of the thing to keep in mind. But if they catch you doing that and you get punished, your privileges are revoked as a retiree for the entirety of the peninsula in all military bases. And you might, worst case scenario, you might not even be given access to the military base. There's other military bases around the world where retirees have done unscrupulous things. Their privileges have been revoked, and their ability to access the military base was revoked as well. So again, it's not something that we want to take a look at. And, we don't want to poke the bear. We don't want to live in the gray. We don't want to put our visas into, that could be a visa violation as well. What happens, because as we read that regulation, what if it escalates to the point of where it gets reported to the Korean government? And the Korean government says, hey, by the way, Mr. Wilson, you're here on a visa, and you ended up illegally transferring duty-free goods to somebody that wasn't authorized to have them. That's most likely a condition that could revoke your visa. I'm just saying, if they really wanted to get anal about it, they really wanted to cross the T's and dot the I's, you could be putting your visa status in danger as well. And as for somebody who's retired here, who's bought an apartment, I've got a car, I've got bank accounts, we love it here. We're never going back to the United States if I can help it. I don't want to put that into jeopardy. So, with that being said, it's not something that I would want to do. Going into it, we see, yes, Wise is an excellent fund transfer app. Highly recommended. My friends in Thailand use it religiously. Yeah, the more and more I look it up, it's great. So it's definitely, I downloaded the app, but I don't have any reason to use it because of our access to the military base. But as a backup plan, I already have Wise on my phone, so just in case, if something pops up and I got to leave Korea, say, something pops off between North Korea and South Korea, or, maybe there's a natural disaster and, it's like, yeah, let's just get out of here. I could go to the Philippines, I could go to Thailand, Portugal, whatever. I could use Wise to transfer money, and the rates are insanely low. So, yeah, I use it as a backup. It's on my phone. It's on a backup plan. Haven't used it, but the rates look really, really good when you compare them to the rates of international banking transfers and so on and so forth. So, yeah, there it is. So for the people that are like saying on that post that were like, do it, but just don't tell anybody, the fact that you put it out on social media under anonymously, you have to remember that on this Camp Humphrey support group page, when you go anonymously, the admins have access to your real identity, your actual identity. So if something pops up that is illegal, somebody might turn you in. I don't know. I don't want to, it's good that this is, hey, I'm asking because I don't know and I'm concerned. Here's the situation. You got your answer. Don't do it. But for the people that are like, I filled up everyone's card that I escorted with no issue, it's probably not a good thing. That's like the nuisance streamer that streamed themselves doing illegal things here in Korea. It's probably not a smart thing. And if you think that the anonymity of being anonymous and posting that will save you, it all depends. It won't. If it really gets up somebody's nose, they could turn you in for that. I'm no rat. I'm no snitch. I'm just saying. Not my monkey, not my circus. I just want other retirees to not put their privileges in danger, or worst case scenario, put my privileges. Maybe the post commander or whatever says, you know what, I've had it with these retirees. They've done so much crap. We're not allowing them on post. We're revoking their privileges, which is within the regs. They could do that. It would probably have to take a lot, and there would be complaining and letters to congressmen and women and whatever. I don't even want to go down that road. I just want to do my thing, enjoy my models, printing, painting, going to the gym, getting buff. Yeah, drinking some coffee. That's what I want to do. So very, very interesting. Matter of fact, let me renew this, and we'll see if there's any new comments on that after mine. Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, we got some more information, so let's check it out. Okay, so there was my comment, and again, I put a little picture of the gas and stuff like that. Alan says, I think we posted about the same time, basically the same info. I can see the future, and it has ration plates. Yeah, we've seen that in the past happen. And Alan put this, he says, as a preference, I've been here since 2001. Wow, so he's been there for a minute. If you are signing his car on post, that big piece of paper on the dash is going to be a big giveaway that the car is not sofa. Yeah, that the cameras will see that because the paper is kind of like that big. You have to put it in your dash. So when you pull into the gas station and the cameras are looking at you as you're, that's a thing. Alan, man, Common sense. Got it. In spades. Yongsan, there was a gate at the entrance to the gas station. You had to show your ID and ration plate just to get access to the pumps. Some places do that. I remember even in Hawaii. This is an interesting little tidbit because before we came to Korea to retire, we lived on Oahu for a year. And of course, we would use the military gas pumps because they were a little bit cheaper. They would check your ID to see if you were indeed retired military. Because again, you get a little bit cheaper gas at those military gas pumps than you would on the economy. So yeah, it's just not a foreign thing. It can be a U.S. thing as well. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So let's see, what else we got? Years ago, it was strictly enforced, as was the entrance to the commissary and the exchange. You needed your ID card as well as a ration card to enter. I remember ration cards too. Remember we were talking about that. But recently, like has been pointed out, at the commissary, they now require ID cards before you can get into the commissary. If you don't have it, they turn you away. There's a lot of non-SOFA employees on base that have their cars registered. As soon as someone gets caught, we will all be showing our IDs like at the commissary. If it becomes habitual, we will be waiting in line again for ration plates or making sure, kind of like what we experienced on Oahu, you had to get your ID card checked before you could get gas. Personally, I do not care. Do whatever your rank can afford. Yep. But know the possible consequences if you get caught. And he also references our USFK Reg 60-1. Great minds think alike. So, Alan, you have won the internet today. Congrats to you if you're watching this. Several years ago, Osan Air Base, let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. Base commander that went on a campaign against people violating the ration policy. I had a friend who was working at the BX. He was a retired 05, and his wife were caught violating ration control regs. They were barred from the base for 20 years. Wow. Hand it to the Air Force for swinging the hammer, bringing it down. While I seriously doubt something that extreme would ever happen, you would probably at least lose your ration privileges, including the commissary and exchange. At one time, you could purchase up to 5 gallons in a separate container. Read the regulation to see if that is still the case. If you get caught, Facebook advice is not a defense. That is true. Facebook is not a defense. Ignorance is not a defense. How many times I've seen while I was on militaries, during my active duty military days, oh, I didn't know. Ignorance is not bliss. It doesn't remove the accountability or the liability that you have for breaking those regs or laws. Same thing with foreigners that go to foreign countries and they say, oh, I have freedom of speech. I'm an American. Yeah, you have freedom of speech in America. And you might have freedom of speech here in Korea, but how that's defined and what you can do can be different depending on the nation that you go to. So even, communist countries say, yeah, you have freedom of speech, but then you start looking on the things that you can and cannot say. And yeah, you have to go by the definition of the country that you're in. So just being an American and claiming I'm an American, I don't have to follow the rules and the laws, the military here or Korean law or whatever it is, that is not going to fly. It just doesn't work for some strange reason. So yeah. But wow, could you imagine being barred from base? Did you see that part? They were barred from the base for 20 years. That's crazy. Could you imagine doing something like that? Now, obviously, they were doing a lot of bad stuff to get that 20-year ban from the base. So that means you can't go to the commissary, you can't go to the PX or the base exchange, the BX. You can't use the military hospital because you don't have access to the base. You can't use the pharmacy. You can't go to the food court. You can't, again, gas stations, all of the things that class 6, you can't do anything. If you're not allowed on post, guess what? You also lost your mailbox privileges as well, because retirees can get at the current time of this video, retirees can get an APO AP mailbox, but you're limited to 16 ounces of correspondence. You can't get Amazon packages or family sending you big boxes through the mail to your APO as a retiree. It's just one of the things that it's in the SOFA agreement, and retirees on the bottom of the list. I just thank God that we can get my little small little mailbox, and I can get some bank statements and Social Security and other stuff. And you can also, but you can get packages from medical providers. So if you have things like CPAP, supplies, or other medication that can be sent to you, things like that are oversized, those can be sent, and those are accepted in retiree APO AP mailboxes. That's on top of the 16 ounces. So it has to be like a prescription from a doctor, medical devices, things like that. But yeah, regular packages, birthday packages, Amazon, whatever, no, you can't get those. So yeah, imagine being in Korea as a retiree, and worst case scenario, you fill up your buddy's tank in their car that is not registered to you, it's registered to them, and you lose all your privileges. And then that puts, like what Alan was talking about there, that might put more scrutiny on all us other retirees. Lord knows what, it's not really a good thing to do. So for Mr. Anonymous, who originally posed the question of saying, hey, I'm a retiree, if I escort my friend's car on base, can I fill it up? Heard it might be against the rules. Well, yeah, you heard right, and we definitely went over that and showed you that. And it says that you can't bring your car on base. Again, check with Mod Hall in the vehicle registration. Let me see. Camp Humphreys vehicle registration. And to find out some more information on this, as soon as this pops up, we'll take a look at this. So here it is. Dun, dun, dun. Camp Humphreys, Korea. Just do Camp Humphreys vehicle registration. DBIDS vehicle registration. It talks about that. It has the times and the hours, primary, secondary phone numbers. And it also has the phone number that you can dial from off post. The 8250-3357-4001. And again, it talks about all the things that you need: license plate mounting, all of that, ship new vehicles. It goes through all the information, and the people that work there are great. When we went and registered our vehicle, they were real helpful down there, so hats off to the people at the vehicle registration and pass and ID. Everybody at Mod Hall, we've never had a problem with them. Everybody's been helpful and professional, so yeah, that's what we got going on. Okay, so that's it. Retired in Korea, can you buy gas on post for your Korean friend's car? Yep, put a pin in it, put a fork in it, it's done, you can't. Even though the possibility of getting caught is like very small, I wouldn't want to put my privileges in danger, and I don't think anybody else should as well. With that being said, like Alan said, do what your rank can handle. You're a big boy, you're big boys and girls out there, you're going to do what you're going to do. And if you decide to break the law and get caught, the slim chance that it does, there's consequences to your actions. So with that being said, anyway, I think that's going to be it for the video. I think this is going to be it. 2 a day is good. We're done. With that being said, be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate that. That would help. And watching the videos and checking out my other stuff that I have. I just got monetized, so the likes and the subscribes and watching more videos, that would really help. If you have any comments, concerns, or you want to contact me, there's my email address. I 100% answer everybody. Matter of fact, I just answered a guy, Chris, when I did my earlier video today about the nuisance streamer and the foreigner-only prison that is here in Korea. So if you go back on my YouTube page, you can see that as well. If you really want to do me a solid, you can buy me a coffee. That's what the scrolling ticker is. People who bought me coffee, there's a link in the description box for that. If not, no big deal. please just like and subscribe. That would be the best thing that you can do, and we can continue on making these videos and kind of informing you and helping other retirees and highlighting, our golden years here in Korea as we're American expats. So yeah, good stuff. And last comment, thanks, Steve. You're welcome. Thanks for watching. Thank you. I appreciate that as well. So it's good to have discussions like this and see all these things going on and kind of have a little bit of a community for those of us that have either been to Korea or are currently retired in Korea or still actively serving here in Korea or even other parts of the world, some good information. And we got an alibi. Billy Mack says, thanks. See you next time. And we will see you next time. Peace. Good stuff. Thanks for watching, y'all. I appreciate it.